And welcome back to another edition of the Unreasonable Odds podcast, getting you set for week 3 in the NFL, mostly from a betting perspective. Julian Edlow, my co-host Steve Buchanan, will be going through the board here in week 3. We were just kind of saying off the air, kind of a tough week when you're looking at the board overall. Over the past 2 weeks, there's been a lot of situations where, like, you and I like some underdogs that we liked. Kind of tough for this week. It seems like to be a very heavy favorite this week. Looking at how the board has come out overall, looking at how some of these teams have done, straight up favorites are now 18-14 on the season after a very heavy underdog week in week 1. The under has been hitting a ton overall this season too as well. So something to keep an eye on as well. But let's just get right into it. First and foremost, Julian, what are we looking at on the board here? What's one of your favorite plays on the week?
Yeah. So what I said to you off the air was this reminds me of, and I should go back and look at what week it was. Maybe I'll put it out on Twitter. Last year, there were a couple of weeks that I was like, these are teaser weeks.
Yeah.
I didn't bet any spreads. I'll tell you who I like in certain games, but I don't think I'm going to bet any spreads this week. I'm going to do all teasers. And that week last year, all the teasers on the board hit, which included like a 5 or 6 leg teaser at big plus money. So I actually just added this morning on Thursday morning to my NFL best bets article, a Panthers, which starts on Thursday night.
Yeah.
My best bet we'll get to at the end. It's a 2-team teaser. It is what I gave out on Monday, and I'm officially going with it today. But Carolina against Houston, Arizona against Jacksonville.
Yeah. Buffalo
hosting Washington is now down to 7.5. Cleveland hosting Justin Fields in his first start. He'll be good.
This is one teaser?
I like the Browns in that game. One teaser. And Baltimore at Detroit. This is a 5-leg teaser.
Oh, my goodness.
It gets everybody to -2 or better. It's plus 400.
Wow.
Now, this is not, as you know, this is out of character for me.
That's why I had to confirm this was one teaser.
It's out of character for me. It's a 1 unit. It's going to be a 1 unit play at plus 400, how I wrote it up in the article, whereas bigger plays I like. I've been doing 2.5 units this year.
Yeah.
Now listen to it this way. Like, if you can convince yourself something is value, then I'm all about it. If you put those 5 teams in a money line parlay on DK Sportsbook,
yeah,
it's plus 212. If you tease them, it's plus 400.
That's pretty damn good.
You are getting double the value on teasing unless we get really screwed on one of these teams winning by 1 or 2.
Yeah.
The ones that are 1.5, 2 on the spread. Like, as long as these teams all win by like a field goal, essentially, we're going to be okay at twice the odds of the money line parlay.
So 2 teams that I worry about in this. I like this overall. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm probably going to be taking this myself. Buffalo worries me a bit against Washington. And then you and I have both said this.
Buffalo, Washington. Yeah.
And then obviously the Browns against the Bears, starting Justin Fields officially. You know, that could go either way. Like, that could end up being a total disaster, or that could end up being what Bears fans have been waiting for since April. Was the draft? May? Was the draft?
Sure.
Early 2021. That's April. A good way to put it. Those would be the 2 teams that I would worry about the most. Love the Ravens, love the Panthers, absolutely love the Cardinals. That's my favorite play of the week. Spoiler alert, is the Cardinals. But what's the team that worries you the most of those? Is it still the Browns? Because you mentioned that to me off the air earlier in the week. Is it still the Browns, or is Buffalo in that mix for you as well?
I'm more confident in Buffalo at home against Washington because of, and I know it's a league that goes back and forth, but what we saw on Thursday Night Football against the Giants from Washington's secondary was awful. And now you go against Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs at home. I think they're going to be okay here. The Browns concern me the most because, like, there's no real NFL tape on Fields. And now he's not a gadget guy anymore. He's the starter. That'll give him a much longer leash to kind of do his thing. At the same time, it's the Bears. The defense is awful. I don't think they're going to be creative enough to get there. Now, the Browns are down some wide receivers, but I think they have enough in the pass rush. And if Fields, if this was Dalton, it'd be so much easier. Fields can escape the pass rush with his legs, obviously. So that's the only concern there. And then the Browns are down some receivers, but if that makes them run the ball more, I'm fine with it. Like, Chubb and Hunt should have big games here. I think the Browns get it done at home.
Yeah, so it's funny that like I'm the one who's like more conservative on the show. That's never how it is. I'm the reckless guy. I'm the one who's always like, yeah, let's add another leg to this one.
It's a smaller play. I just think those are the ones that you want to make different combinations of your favorite 2-team teasers, and then just in case it is that week, because there is always a week or two where this works. I think this might be the week, so I'm lumping them all in at plus 400. Now, other people are going to say, real quick, like the Chiefs are 6.5 point favorites. Notice I did not include them.
Yeah.
The Broncos are going to beat the Jets, but you don't get them through the key number of 3. You get them only down to 4.5 if you do that teaser. There are other popular teaser legs too. 2 home underdogs. People like getting the Rams to 7.5. People like getting the Vikings to 7.5.
Yeah.
I like those. I think they're sharp plays, but I'm staying off of those. So huge teaser week coming up in the NFL.
So I talked about earlier in the week that I loved getting the Buccaneers because they were the underdogs earlier this week. They were the ones that were at plus 1.5, getting them at 7.5. That has since shifted. They are now minus 1.5 on the spread. So I don't like them as much anymore in a teaser. If you're making it later in the week now, I would have much rather gotten them at 7.5. You still okay with it?
No, you don't tease the Bucks. You never tease
right.
The
Yeah, exactly.
Favorite.
Right. So if you didn't catch that earlier in the week, I'm not teasing them anymore. Where I am at though for this week now, being later in the week, if you're still looking to make some teasers, Cardinals Ravens for a 2-team teaser. I think that's one of the best ones on the board. Getting that at minus 120, you get the Cardinals down to -1. You get the Ravens down to minus 1.5. Both should easily do that against both teams. I know the Lions have been a little bit feisty, a little bit feistier than we like, but we saw how much they collapsed at the end of that game against the Packers. One that they were kind of hanging for the first half. It was kind of like, oh crap, like maybe this team can hang, and no, they can't hang. They can't hang. Shouldn't be able to hang against the Ravens. I absolutely love the Cardinals. I am still shocked that this is -7. Like they are better than a touchdown team against the Jaguars. Like when you saw what Kyler Murray looked like last week, over 400 yards, rushed in a touchdown, threw for 3, doesn't even need DeAndre Hopkins the entire game to do all that. They had that hookup early in the game. I think it was really the first drive where Hopkins quickly made 4 catches, but kind of ghosted the rest of the game. And Murray still had an incredible game. Like they're deep. They're just so deep. And I love everything about that team. So this kind of feels like the Patriots line for me last week against the Jets. Like I look at that and I'm like, this is not right. Like I think that this should be a little bit higher. So if that's how I feel, then, teasing them down to 1, give me a break. Like, yes, like the Cardinals are going to cover that one. So Cardinals, Ravens, that's my favorite teaser of the week. Overall favorite, I have no problem still taking Arizona at -7. I have no qualms about that at all. They should be able to get that. Obviously, if you can get it down to 6.5, even better. But I'm still fine with taking them at 7.
Yeah, if you made me wait for Sunday for my best bet Sunday, because my best bet does involve Thursday night, I would say the Arizona Baltimore teaser is my favorite outright play on Sunday.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't think I'm going to, unless we get like weird news that is unexpected, I don't think I'm going to bet a single spread standalone this week in the NFL.
Yeah.
If you made me bet one, and I hate it, I'm on Raiders under 8 wins. The Raiders are going 3-0 and covering the growing 4.5 against the Dolphins.
I forgot you were on under 8.
I'm going to need, look, this is one of those examples of you can't let where you have your money in the futures market tie up like what you're seeing right in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
The Raiders are playing well right now, and Miami without Tua, not that Tua is the best to begin with, but Miami without Tua really struggles to move the ball. Raiders, good defense at home. Raiders -4.5. If I play a spread, that's going to be the one. And then I'm going to need the Raiders to go ahead and out of their last 14 games, I'm going to need them to go, 5-9.
Yeah.
So that I can push.
Right.
5-9 to push, 4-10 to win.
Week 3, and you're already hoping for a push on a future.
Here we are. Lions under 5 is off to a good start. Jags under 6.5 is off to a good start. Those are my other ones. So
yeah, Colts to miss the playoffs is looking good for me right now.
I took some big plus money on Colts to miss the playoffs when that Wentz news came out.
Yep. Me too. And then I think
I told you to do that.
Yeah, and then it looked like it was going to backfire because they're like, "Oh no, he's going to be good," and we're like, "Oh crap!" And then no, it's been fine.
Nah.
Hey, let me ask you about this game real quick too, because I have a lot of interest in this one. And Seahawks and Vikings. Seahawks only 1.5-point favorites in this one. I don't think we've really talked about how good Russ has been through the first 2 weeks because we've seen a lot of other great performances. Like, Dak looks good coming back. Brady obviously doing what he does. Kyler Murray looking really good. Russ has been really good through the first 2 weeks. This Viking secondary has been bad. Really, really bad. Like really specifically like Rashad Breeland, who was from the Chiefs last year on the Vikings this year. He's already been scored on 3 times already in the first 2 weeks. No other corner has been scored on more than twice. So Breeland already leads the league in touchdowns scored against. He only allowed 5 last year. So already 3. And then you got Lockett and you got Metcalf. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game. Over under obviously indicates that 55 points. You've been able to run on the Seahawks easily. They've been getting up a ton of receiving yards to opposing backs too. So obviously they have to deal with Dalvin Cook, but I'm kind of really, really liking the Seahawks at -1.5 here. And it seems like I'm just trying to pull up the numbers here real quick where the public is on for that one. Actually, I don't have it in front of me. But I just really am digging Seahawks -1.5. Like you said, there's not a lot of spreads you're going to be picking this week. That one just keeps yelling my name. The -1.5 for the Seahawks.
So when we had Johnny Avello on Monday, Johnny actually told me that he thinks the wrong team is favored in this one and that this will close Minnesota a favorite. Now, It hasn't gone that way so far, but I think that thought process is why I've seen a lot of sharp bettors take the 6 in a teaser and get Minnesota up to +7.5, which is getting through some huge key numbers for a home team. And Seattle's defense hasn't been great either. We saw the 33-30 home loss to Tennessee last weekend. The Vikings offense has been playing well. Kirk Cousins and that offense are playing well. The receivers, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook is playing well. It's the defense, like you said, that has been miserable. And Seattle's been giving up points. So I actually took a different spin on this game. And like I said, I rarely bet totals, but I wrote up some totals this week. I'm on the over 55 in this game in my best bets article. I think that we're going to see a absolute shootout here. Kirk Cousins and the offense are going, like I said, and people kind of think of them not in that light, but like they're going to put up points here at home. I think they can get to 30, and I think Seattle can get to 30. I'm not sure who's going to win the game. Minnesota's a good 0-2. They easily could be 2-0. So maybe this is one at home that they need to win and they get from the Seahawks. I don't know, but I'm confident whoever wins it, it's going to be like a 35-32.
Do you like teasing totals?
I don't. It needs to be. I need to see some serious value for some reason. I can't think of a total that I've teased.
Well, this is why I only bring that up because we like the over in the Seattle game, obviously. I like the over in the Ravens game. You can tease both of them down over 49 in the Seahawks game, over 44 in the Ravens Lions. Like that feels. Like that's why I bring that up because you can get some damn good numbers for some of these games.
Well, this is why teasers are dangerous. Like anything you tease, you're like, man, that's a good number. It always looks good when you move at 6 points. It needs to hit. I would probably, rather than like make a total teaser, if I really wanted a total, I'd probably just tease it with something I liked. Like if my favorite leg is Arizona, I'm doing Arizona and the over 49 in the Minnesota Seattle and keep it with something strong. Or if you think it's correlated to the same game, Vikings +7.5 and over 49 in that same game, you can tease it. So those are my thoughts. I've one more total that I got before we go to underdogs and best bets. So I'll do that now. And totals, like I said, rare for me, but we're not going to see many points in this Saints-Patriots game. Under 42.5. I talked about it on Monday. I think it was at 43. I wrote it up in best bets, obviously at 42. It got down to 41.5. It's back up at 42.5. The Patriots have given up 23 total points through 2 games. The Saints I don't know where that came from against the Packers, the 38 in week 1, but they held the Packers to 3. And then last week they scored 7 in their first road game against Carolina. And the Patriots only scored 25 points against the Jets with 4 gift-wrapped interceptions from Zach Wilson. These teams have good run games, young quarterbacks, a mistake-prone quarterback for the Saints, a guy in Mac Jones that, yes, the Saints are down some secondary guys, but Bill Belichick's not going to let him sling it. Right. This is going to be a low-scoring game in Foxborough between the Saints and Patriots.
Both teams 0-2 on hitting the over so far, and they've both failed to cover by an average of 10-plus points, both teams. So there's something. There's 2 right there. The Patriots actually were one of the, obviously because of Cam Newton, were one of the worst teams at hitting the over last year overall. But that trend is continued so far this year. Let's quickly talk about our underdog section. Who let the dogs out? We're both on the same underdog in this one. There's not a lot of underdogs that are in great spots this week. But I think it's fair to say that both you and I do like the Bengals in that game against the Steelers. Don't know the status of Ben Roethlisberger, who is dealing with a pectoral injury, so that's something to keep a watch on. But it doesn't seem to be phasing too much because there's still minus 180 on the money line and minus 3 favorites at home. But at least for me, Joe Burrow is starting to look better and better every week. Love the connection with Jamar Chase for selfish reasons, over 4.5 touchdowns. So, there's that. But plus 155 on the money line. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's the dog that I initially gave out. I don't think that it is the worst spot in the world, but it's based on Ben Roethlisberger being injured, and I don't know. Sometimes he plays really well when he's injured. So I'm almost backing off my own dog here. If you're gonna go Bengals, I'll go Packers. I think the Packers have a chance to win that game Sunday Night Football against San Francisco. Both teams kind of Jekyll and Hyde, so we'll see what we get there. Did we even talk? Did we talk Thursday Night Football even?
On the last show, a little bit, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll just say for Thursday Night Football, I'll have an article. I'll have a best bets article with some props and whatnot. But I don't know if I'll even be on any of them. I think I'm just solely going to rely on a couple teaser legs on Carolina down to 1.5, 2 as my best bet for Thursday, and we'll see if the rest comes through when we get to Sunday. You want to give out your Thursday night play here?
Yeah, I like Chris Conley over 2.5 receptions at plus 110. They got 2 receivers that are going to be out in this game. Danny Amendola recently signed, won't be playing in this one. Nico Collins, I believe, just went onto the IR. So it's really going to be Brandon Cooks and Chris Conley. And if you have to ask me, who the coverage is going to be on, it's going to be on Brandon Cooks. It's not going to be on Chris Conley. So obviously they have the rookie quarterback in this one. No Tyrod Taylor because he's obviously injured. So there is some concern there. And obviously the Panthers pass rush has been phenomenal. Their overall defense has been phenomenal. So that's going to be an issue. But to only need 3 receptions from Conley, getting that at plus money, I think that's a play that I'm definitely going to be looking at tonight.
Okay, so my best bet, I pretty much gave it out. It's going to be the Carolina-Arizona teaser. That kind of ties right into our Thursday night one. If you wind up watching this after Thursday Night Football and you want one, I will very comfortably just adjust it to a Baltimore-Arizona teaser because I'm nearly equally confident in that one. I don't think there's much of a difference. Steve, best bet for Week 3 NFL.
Yeah, I've been saying this since the beginning of the week. Cardinals -7 going against the Jaguars. If you want to parlay that, tease that with the Ravens, getting them down to -1.5, and then getting the Cardinals down to -1. I mean, both teams should absolutely be in that realm to beat both teams like that. So I think that's a teaser you can look for. But I'm most certainly putting my money on the Cardinals -7 against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
All right, that's going to do it for NFL for us. Coming up, I'm going to be joined by Tim Murray from VSiN. We're going to talk a little bit of Week 4 college football and give you hopefully some good bets to ride with there. All right, guys, welcome into the college football segment of the Unreasonable Odds podcast. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, you noticed that my co-host, Steve Buchanan, he is gone. He doesn't do the college football. And for that, we welcome in a special guest, Tim Murray from VSiN. You can find him on Twitter at @1 Tim Murray. He's the co-host of the Nightcap, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern on VSiN, co-host with Super Bowl champion Sean King. Tim, welcome into the Unreasonable Odds podcast, man. We appreciate having you here.
Yeah, man. Always love chopping it up, Julian. It's great to be on, man.
All right. Well, starting with the college football week, before you came on, before we get into that, we'll play Know You Better. We'll start with that. Get a quick icebreaker to know our guest Tim Murray a little bit better. We always start Know You Better off. We'll pump you up here. I don't need it. It doesn't need to be your biggest dollar amount. We don't need to know anything about that, but your favorite win of your sports betting career.
Oh, my favorite win. Well, I'm hoping a couple hit this. I'm hoping a couple hit this year. But I'll just do a recent one because my mind feels like mush. Last year started at VSiN September 1st. And, as you know, in the futures market, there's not a ton of value when it comes to college football. Yes, you can find a long shot. I'll give you one in baseball in just a moment. But for college football, I was sitting around, new to town. I saw at the Westgate Superbook hung a 5-1 on Bama. And I'm like, that, as crazy as it seems, as we all like to scour the world for value, I'm like 5-1 on Alabama with everything they were bringing back. And they ultimately, just destroy everybody in their path. So that was a recent one. The second one was kind of a homer play. I'm from DC, and I'm a huge Nationals fan. And when they won the World Series, Julian, it was a bet with your heart type of moment. I mean, anyone who knows the Nationals, their postseason history had been just kind of gut wrenching, losing in the divisional rounds. And I just went all in. I went to the wild card game against the Brewers where they got fortunate. I had them on the money line in that game. I had a little future going in. Then they beat the Dodgers. They're a big dog against the Astros. So it's just one of those situations where I often say, and I'm sure we'll get into the Notre Dame game, I don't like betting on my teams. But for some reason that year, I was like, you know what? Let's just play with house money. So let's just keep firing away on the Nationals. So I got doubly the satisfaction with not only my team winning a championship, but also having the financial backing as well.
That is essentially my 2018 Red Sox. I just backed them the entire way along the way and sprinkled some Steve Pearce plus 3,000 World Series MVP and got it. The 2018 Red Sox, very, very good to me. All right, I got to flip the script on you here. Your worst bad beat.
Oh man, there's
so many. Everybody has so many of them. And I'll just start this by saying I gave out last week Army minus 33.5 against UConn.
Ooh.
Absolute destruction. 42-0 at halftime. They doubled the first half spread. They cashed their team total over in the first half. UConn had now gone 10 quarters without scoring a point against FBS competition. They scored 21 in the second half against the backups and cover. That is a new low for me, so I will actually give one out here on the podcast because this is one of my new all-time bad beats. Furious about it. Wrote it up in my article as my biggest play of the weekend. Had to get that out. Tim Murray, the floor is yours.
So there were some bad ones in the MAC last year. I don't know if people remember those midweek matching games last year were just brutal. And I remember watching bad beats for Van Pelt Center. And I think like I was on the wrong side of two of them one night. But I like to do bigger picture type of things. I'm trying to remember the year. I think it was 2017. So another kind of recent one. And it was, the Golden State Warriors. This is the final year of Durant. And, they weren't playing all that well in the regular season, but they were still chalky. They were still, the favorites. And I think they got as low as like minus 200. And I said, I mean, they just can't, they're not going to lose. I just kept firing away. And ultimately the Toronto Raptors won the championship. So I'm sitting there and I never laid chalk like that. I'm always looking for the dog, searching the dirt for something ugly. And I just was laying chalk left and right like an amateur. And of course, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson get hurt. The Toronto Raptors win the championship. And I could just sit there with the tickets in hand thinking what a dope I was to just keep backing the Golden State Warriors. That team it would seem too good to be true to get them at like minus 180 at some point in the regular season. And it was because they got hurt and I ended up eating all that. So I still remember that. There are the individual games, there's no doubt that you just try to flush from your memory. But ultimately, I mean, look, last week, I'll give you one for example. Last week I had Boise at home against Oklahoma State. I don't know what the ref is doing, blowing the whistle. I'm sitting there on my couch, it's late night. I've got the TVs on, and there's a fumble, scoop and score for Boise State. They take the lead. They're going to wrap this thing up, but there was a whistle. So they review it. It was a fumble, but you can't assume a touchdown. So Boise State gets the ball back. They don't score, and the rest is history. So, those recent ones where you always think you're on the right side, but there's always the gift and the curse, because I was also on Memphis, and Memphis had no business winning that game. They were outgained by like 200 yards. That punt return was complete bogus. So, there's always the other side of the coin too.
I was on Memphis as well, so I'm glad we got that one done. I also had like 4 to 5 tickets on the Warriors that last Durant year, including I just couldn't get enough. Like, I got in again when Durant got hurt in the playoffs, assuming he would come back. He did come back. Look what happened. Whoops. I just kept piling on that one.
Well, I mean, I'll give you a quick one for this year. I remember I think so many of us in this industry knew what was going to happen in that Suns-Lakers series. And I played it perfectly to a T. They lose game 1. I'm sitting there at the sports book. I'm like, boom, fire on the adjusted series. I think I got like plus 110. Lakers go out, dominate game 2, dominate game 3. LeBron's laughing, making jokes. And I'm like, this is in the bag, easy victory. And then AD gets hurt and it's all done. So you could play it perfectly, and then it ultimately can backfire, because that's what happens in sports gambling.
You're really speaking to me in this segment. I was huge on the Lakers after the game 1 loss. I took the Suns. I didn't want to take the Suns for the game, I think, because I had the Lakers series before, and I was like, I bet a little less because I was going to be prepared to double down when they lost game 1. But I took Suns like first quarter, first half in that first game.
Yeah, I had first half Suns.
Backing on the Lakers. Felt great about it. So we'll finish Know You Better on this. You're not allowed to say bankroll management because everybody says bankroll management. Your best advice for new sports bettors with the recent blow up of all this legalization of sports betting across the U.S.
Yeah, it's kind of like the phrase you just said, but what I'll say is, I think Brent Musburger has said this many times differently, but essentially just make it fun money. Look, at the end of the day, we're not going to make a living off of this. It's a way to be entertained. It's a way to make a couple extra bucks if you want to, but you have to remember with the getting the extra bucks comes the losing of that. So if you have fun money put aside, you got a bonus at work, or you had a birthday or holidays or whatever it may be, make sure, for the love of God, people, that you're taking care of yourself, your family, your mortgage, your bills. That's important. And then if you have a little extra ching that you want to have some fun with, you have to be, at the end of the day, if you're going to put out $100, you have to be willing to lose that $100, because more often than not, guess what? That $100 will eventually be gone. We're going to try to win, and that's what we're competitive, and we do all the research. But at the end of the day, it's gambling for a reason. So it kind of is what you said, but I'm trying to tweak it a little bit. Fun money, whatever's to the side, rainy day fun, whatever you want to call it. Make that your gambling money, because at the end of the day, and just do your research and trust in people. But because you, me, people at VSiN, people all over the place. There's really smart people, but the best hit, 50 some odd percent of the time.
Right.
So just recognize that you're going to lose, but hopefully when you have those heaters, those runs, that you embrace it and you enjoy it. So have fun with it. At the end of the day, you're not going to make a living off of gambling.
All right. We're going to get into some Saturday college football now. You told me before the show, the game of the weekend, you're going to the game of the weekend. That being the neutral site Wisconsin-Notre Dame game. I think this is a really interesting game. The look ahead before the season on DraftKings Sportsbook, I think it was Wisconsin. This was a pick'em. Maybe Wisconsin was laying 1, but it was essentially a minus 120 Wisconsin even money Notre Dame money line type of line. both teams have probably underwhelmed so far compared to expectations. Wisconsin has the outright loss at home to Penn State to start the season. Notre Dame finally gets its first cover running away at home against Purdue, but obviously needed overtime to beat an FSU team that now looks not to be a good team at all, and then needed heroics to beat Toledo. Like, neither of these teams have done anything to impress us so far, yet this is still the game of the weekend.
Yep.
You have not that the rankings matter, but you have the lower ranked team favored by nearly a touchdown now. I can't figure this game out. Part of me is like, this must mean, if the spread has gone this far, this must mean that Wisconsin's going to run away with this one. But if this gets to a touchdown, like, Wisconsin hasn't shown me anything. How am I not going to take Notre Dame +7? All in all, I think this means we're going to see a lot of defense, and you probably play the under, which has already moved down. But what's your take on I guess both side and total in this game?
Yeah, my first play, I was waiting for it to pop, and it popped 47.5. The openers here in Las Vegas, Circus Sportsbook. I played under 47.5, and honestly, 47 is a key number in college football, but I still would play it at 46.5. That's the way I would look, because I understand the rationale of thinking this is too many points, and my betting philosophy has been for a long time, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. So let's just remove my Notre Dame cap. I probably would hold my nose and lay it with Wisconsin. But I think when you evaluate this game, break it down, there's sense behind this line, because Notre Dame's offensive line, which has always been a strength really in the Brian Kelly era, is incredibly down right now. You lose 4 players to the NFL. Jared Patterson is their best offensive lineman. He's their center. They bring in Kane Madden, who is an All-American at Marshall, but he was at Marshall, and now you're playing with the big boys, and he is underwhelmed so far at the guard position. They've been, shifting things around. They charted a true freshman at left tackle and Blake Fisher. He got hurt against Florida State. Their backup comes in, Michael Carmody. He gets hurt. We think Michael Carmody will be back. So when you look at the biggest disadvantage or advantage, if you're thinking about Wisconsin in this game, it's their defense against Notre Dame's offensive line. Jim Leonard is an incredible defensive mind. Dude got offered the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator position and turned it down to stay at Wisconsin. It's unfathomable. A Wisconsin guy got offered a Green Bay Packers DC job and turned it down. He's unbelievable. He's going to scheme it up. They've had a week or so to prepare. So that's why you would bet Wisconsin. Conversely, what has Wisconsin shown us, Julian, that they can score enough points to win this game or win by as many points? Graham Mertz doesn't stretch the ball vertically. I don't think he's thrown a pass, I believe, over 20 air yards this year. It's either 20 or 30 air yards. Notre Dame's defense has actually been improving. They held Purdue to about 2.3 yards per carry, which was a big step in the right direction after betting a couple gash plays against Florida State and Toledo. So it all just screams to me, you got to play the under in this spot, which is so awesome that I'm going to a game where I'm betting the under. Nothing more exciting than going to a live sporting event and having the under ticket in your pocket. But, to me, this is a 23-16, 23-17, 20-17 type of game all over it. And the thing about Wisconsin that I think they will be able to do is grind this thing out. They can wear down Notre Dame, because you look at the Penn State game that they lost, they had the ball for 42 minutes, man. I still don't know how they lost that game. I mean, I know how they lost it. Big chunk plays, red zone inefficiency, and that's an issue for Wisconsin. 5 of 10 inside the red zone this year. That's horrific. 4 touchdowns, 1 field goal, 5 missed opportunities. So I just all comes back to Wisconsin struggling to score, Notre Dame's offensive line, which allows 5 sacks per game. Now they go up against this Wisconsin defense that's going to throw crazy linebackers at you all over the place. So I don't like the side one way or the other, because I could see Wisconsin winning this game like 23-13. But I do like the under. That would be, if I had to make a play, and I have made a play, my own play would be to look under for this one between Notre Dame and Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm with you there on the under being the best play in the game. Just quickly, the rest of the noon window, you got an impressive Texas Tech team, now only a 7.5-point dog at Texas. You got LSU laying 3 at Mississippi State. You got BC, who lost its quarterback and now hosts an SEC team in Missouri as a slight dog. Any of these other decent games in the noon window jump out to you at all?
Yeah, the Boston College one. I won't. It doesn't jump out at me as a play, but I'll talk about bad beats, and I feel bad for the young man. So it's more, look, I just put a couple bucks on it, but I have the over on Boston College wins, and Phil Jerkovic goes down. So
one of my
not ideal there, but
that's one of my big college football futures this year.
Yeah, still have a chance to come home. Look, I if people have listened to me or know me at all, Mississippi State is screaming my name. That line seems short. I think the public's going to like LSU in that spot. It's actually dipped down under 3. I think Mississippi State wins this game outright. You talked about the Memphis game last week. I was on Memphis, fortunate to get that win and that cover. But look inside the box score. They outgained Memphis 469 to 246. Will Rogers is the real deal at quarterback. He's really impressive. And their defense, Mississippi State's defense, is really solid. You're at home in Stark Vegas. 2 weeks ago, they had that big win against NC State when everyone thought NC State would go in and win. They dominated that game. And LSU lost one of their best defensive players this week in Andre Anthony, who had already 3.5 sacks on the year. I think Mississippi State wins this game outright. So take the points late on the money line. I really like this spot for Mississippi State, a bounce back after losing to Memphis on the road last week. I think this is a buy low opportunity on Mississippi State. And you've seen that so far in the market as it's kind of gone in their direction. So if you get a 3, grab it, but also look towards the money line because I think Mississippi State wins this game outright.
Yeah, I wish this was an LSU spot, but I think I'm with you there. I will say I don't hate BC as a plus 105, plus 110 money line dog at home. The backup is a senior.
Yeah.
He has experience. Like, they might be able to get that done. I'm not going to bet that game. I'm going to root for BC because of that win total. All right, looking at some of these later games. Clemson has been bad, very bad by Clemson standards. Now a 10-point favorite at NC State. Like, all the value, I don't even know what the look at it was here, honestly, but all the value is gone. It feels silly almost to take NC State plus 10. But I lean NC State plus 10. Clemson has been bad. This is a spot that they can maybe show that they have something. Just the offense hasn't been great. I think if my favorite play in this game would probably be under 48. NC State has a pretty decent veteran defense. They do have a couple of injuries there, lost some guys. And Clemson's obviously great on defense. I would say under 48. But if you made me take a side, I'll still take the 10, I guess, with NC State, even though it's a bad number at this point.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the opposite in that one where I think you're buying low on Clemson. And you saw a couple years ago, remember when they had that overtime game against UNC? They almost lost. UNC went for 2 and they win that game by 1. And then they went all scorched earth. Now, the difference is that team had Trevor Lawrence and this team has
right.
DJ Uiagalelei. But I still look at, my partner, Sean King, every night says Clemson's going 9-3. They're going 9-3. I'm like, where are the losses? Where? Who's beating them? I mean,
right.
Is UNC beating them? They're not playing the regular season. They're not playing Miami. So I think almost by default, Clemson's going to head back to the ACC championship. I would love to take NC State here, but the defense, even though they lost some, interior talent this week, Clemson did. The defense is still just so good. They haven't allowed a touchdown all year, I believe. So, I mean, they're so talented. So it's a stay away for me. But if you made me play it, I'd probably take Clemson because it just feels like it's a buy low spot on Clemson with a team with that much talent. They brought in Will Shipley. He's kind of taken over the running back position there. So, yeah, to me, it would be Clemson or pass in this spot.
That's one that by the time we get to Saturday, I feel like I'm going to be on that under.
That's not a bad play.
If anything. All right. In this 3:30 window, you mentioned if a line stinks, you love to be on that side.
Yep.
FSU has been horrible. They've moved down from 2.5-point dogs to 1.5-point dogs, hosting a decent Louisville team. Got a nice Friday night primetime win on a walk-off pick 6 against UCF as a 7-point dog, 7-point home dog. I feel like you need to pick your spots here. When do you want to be on the stinky side and when do you not? Last week, FSU was supposed to be the sharp play, +6 against Wake Forest. They got bet all the way down to +4.5. They lost by 3 touchdowns to Wake Forest. Now they're a sharp play again hosting Louisville. And I get that this time they're at home and Louisville's lost a handful of road games in a row. But I think like, how many times can it keep happening? FSU come out and stink and you keep going back. Like, for me, the ship has sailed. FSU is not good. They're not going to turn it around. And I think Louisville minus 120 money line is the play. Do you like a side? Do you lean to a side in this game? Tell me why the stinky FSU Seminoles are going to win this game.
Oh, this line stinks, man. This line is so stinky. And you're buying at the all-time peak of Louisville, right? Last time we saw them, this incredible Friday night win. So look, what I'll say is full disclosure. And when I lose, I'll tell people. I was on Florida State last week. I loved the spot, wrote it up for VSiN.com, bounce back, buy low, all that mumbo jumbo. And like you mentioned, they got smoked by Wake Forest. Now you look inside the box score, it wasn't as bad as maybe you think it was. But at the end of the day, I'm not wasting my money, your taxable income on Florida State. What I do have in this game is a friendly wager with my partner in Sean King. He's with you. He thinks Louisville is the right side. He loves Malik Cunningham. And I said, this line stinks. I gotta roll with my embrace the stink theory. So we've got a little wine cigar bet on this one. No money, even though
that's money. That's
buy
money.
Those things. But I'm not betting this game. If I had to, it would be a nose clip and on Florida State at home to bounce back. But yeah, I look, I don't fault you whatsoever. Sometimes teams just stink and the market hasn't corrected yet. But for me, it would be, I'd have to go on my morals with Florida State here.
That's why I brought this one up, because I knew on your morals that you would have to tell me why you go FSU here. And I am hoping that the market just hasn't caught up yet with how bad FSU actually is, but we will find out. Okay. So I'm just scrolling down the board here. We got the big night game is the Oklahoma-West Virginia game, the primetime game. Oklahoma, I give them no credit for the whatever it was, 70-something win, bounce back after the Tulane game. Good for you. Grinder, barely win against Tulane. And then I know it's a rivalry game against Nebraska, but not even close. You win by a touchdown with a 22.5-point spread. This is at home, West Virginia on the road. I haven't bet it yet, but if you gave me $100 and said you have to bet it on this game, there's no way I'm not going West Virginia plus 17. But is it, as by your theory, is this the buy low spot on Oklahoma? How much higher could it have really been at this point?
Yeah, I mean, they have been disappointing, and they were disappointing last year to start the season. Remember, they lose to Kansas State, they lose to Iowa State, then they get things rolling. I don't know what's up with this Oklahoma team. We were all told that the defense has gotten better. With Alex Grinch, they look terrible against Tulane. So I will, I am not betting this game. West Virginia, I was all over West Virginia. Oh God, I love that spot. Unranked team as a favorite against a ranked team last week. It just screamed my name, and I was all over West Virginia. But now they're going on the road. They historically have struggled on the road. If this thing dips under 17, I'd have to look a little bit towards Oklahoma here. But yeah, I don't love laying chalk all that much. Sometimes you got to do it. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, they have not looked the part yet. When are they going to turn it on? And as an owner of an 8-1 Oklahoma national championship ticket, I'm wondering that same thing too. I'm like, when are you guys going to turn it on? Maybe a bad beat going back to the preseason. I wanted to get in the futures market. I was staring at Georgia, Oklahoma. I could find them both at 8-1 here in Las Vegas. And I go, you know what? I'm going to take Oklahoma. Even though I was talking up Georgia, they got those issues on offense. They got all these injuries and they got some turmoil, whatnot. Okay, I'm going to go Oklahoma. Well, Georgia absolutely looks the part now with their defense, and Oklahoma absolutely does not. So it's a long season, but time to turn it on here. Let's go. Figure it out here, boys.
I'm with you. I got some small Oklahoma plus 775, and I was looking at them in Georgia trying to figure it out. And since then, to be honest, I've come in with a pretty good chunk of Alabama plus 220, given how they've looked. And the only team so far that looks like they can get in their way, obviously, is Georgia. So will we see? I mean, I think we absolutely are about to see an Alabama-Georgia SEC championship game. I don't know how that doesn't happen. The real question is, do we see them play again? For all the marbles, which would be pretty awesome. Before we go, we'll get out of here on like a best bet for the college football weekend. Anything else on the board? Any game that really jumps out to you?
Yeah, there's a couple games. The number has sunk. UTSA, man, they're a good football team, and they've had some fortunate spots this year, right? They played Illinois right after Illinois beat Nebraska. They were a short dog. They went in, won outright. I was on UTSA. I took them at 4 earlier this week. It's down to 3. Would love it at 3.5 for those listening if you can find that. But UTSA is the real deal, man. They got some talent. They got the best running back in the conference. They got a veteran quarterback in Frank Harris. So I think this is a tricky spot for Memphis, coming off of that emotional win over Mississippi State. So I would look a little bit towards UTSA plus the points. It's down to 3, so not loving it. But there's one spot that I really like.
Is this going to be, hold on, is this going to be the best bet?
I guess, yeah. All right. Yeah.
Where's yours? College football week 4, best bet from Tim Murray here.
All right, let's see if it comes home. So Indiana just had their heart ripped out from their chest last weekend, right? You're up 14-0. I was on Indiana because the world was on Cincinnati. So of course I was on the Hoosiers. 14-0. You get a stop. A bogus targeting call is called. Best linebackers ejected from the game. They go down. Cincinnati scores a touchdown. Then you get a terrible interception from Michael Penix. 14-10 at the half. Game is flipped on its head. Yep. Ultimately, Cincinnati wins that game by 2 touchdowns, gets the cover for the world because everybody was on Cincinnati. Next week, Indiana goes to Happy Valley, a rematch of one of the more thrilling games last year, right? The overtime game, the Penix touchdown, was it not? Was it a touchdown? Whatever. This weekend, they've got to go on the road, Julian, to Bowling Green, Kentucky, and take on Western Kentucky. A night game. It's family weekend at Western Kentucky. They're telling their fans it's a blackout. They're wearing their black uniforms. And if anybody has seen what Western Kentucky has done this year, it's amazing. So Western Kentucky was one of the worst offensive teams in the country last year. They were like 117th in yards per play. So what they decided to do, they took the entire offensive staff essentially from Houston Baptist, this high-flying FCS team. They got their OC, the quarterback, and 3 wide receivers. They all come into Western Kentucky. After 2 games, they are tops in the country in yards per play. Bailey Zappi is the name of the quarterback. He's completing 75% of his passes. And now they've had a bye week to prepare for Indiana. They're getting 9 points at home. And one last wrinkle, they played Army, Western Kentucky did 2 weeks ago. They were down by 3 touchdowns. They were getting 6 on the road at West Point. Guess what happened? Backdoor cover, 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They are a high-flying offense. I think they could absolutely keep this game within the number. Love it that it's north of a touchdown. I would even sprinkle maybe a little bit on the money line. But I just love the spot. It's a sandwich spot for Indiana. Just lost to Cincinnati, Penn State next week. And now we go on the road to play a hyped-up atmosphere. It's a night game, which I love. So give me some Hilltopper action. And I'm just fascinated to see this offense and see if it can shine against a Power 5 competition, because it was an FCS team, Tennessee Martin, I think, week 1, and then it was Army, which they lost, but they lost by 3. So a bye week, they're going to be all amped up. So I like Western Kentucky plus the 9 against Indiana.
Fair. I like it. A home dog in a big game. All right, I will quickly give out my best bet for college football. We're going late night. We're going with a big favorite. BYU first half, minus 13.5, hosting South Florida. South Florida is not good. They played an FCS school last week, weren't able to cover. First half so far this season, we saw them, their only road game, they went to NC State to start the season, down 24-0 at halftime, ultimately lose the game 45-0. They did play Florida the next week, covered against Florida, a little bit worrisome. Way backdoor. That was a look-ahead spot for Florida to Alabama. They completely shut down the second half. Do you know what the halftime score of that game was, Tim?
A lot to a little.
A lot to a little. 35-3 Gators. Yeah. Absolutely smoked them in the first half. Similar to what happened on the road against NC State. So South Florida doesn't scare me at all. BYU, 3-0 against Pac-12 competition. What have they done? They led Arizona by 11 at halftime before ultimately Arizona did cover that one, only an 8-point game. Then 2 outright wins as underdogs for BYU, up 16-7 at half against Utah, up 21-7 at half against Arizona State. They have been coming out and taking care of business at home. I think they're going to come out and throttle this South Florida team from the get-go and be up at least 2 touchdowns when they go to the locker room.
And you get to stay up late, which is always a nice thing.
Oh, God. Yeah, I got to work Sunday morning. I got to be in studio for DraftKings. We got NFL content to take care of. I might be asleep when that one hopefully cashes. But out in Vegas, let's see. That's why you live the dream out there in Vegas. Nice and early kickoff for you.
Yeah, it was. It's nice. I got to enjoy that whole Fresno State UCLA game last weekend, which was just glorious, especially if you had the points with Fresno State.
Yeah. Yes. I did maybe have a little bit of points with Fresno State there. No money line though. All right, that'll do it for us this Thursday edition of the Unreasonable Odds podcast presented by DraftKings. You can follow me on Twitter at Julian Edlow. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Unreasonable Odd. Yes, we ran out of room for the S, at Unreasonable Odd. We want to thank our guest, Tim Murray from VSiN, co-host of The Nightcap, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern on VSiN. You can follow him on Twitter at #1 Tim Murray. I'm going to assume you had some trouble as well with your Twitter handle there. I'm assuming somebody has at Tim Murray. Tim, thank you for joining the Unreasonable Odds podcast, man.
No, I appreciate it. Hopefully we bring home some winners for the listeners.
For sure.